All right, let's do this.
Welcome, first-time listeners and returners to the Sports Deli, where everyone deserves a seat at the table, especially our next incredible guest, who joins us today to talk about the intersection between race and sports, mental health, leadership, equality, social injustice, and white privilege. So grab your favorite deli sandwich or bagel and your favorite beverage, and let's do this together in the Sports Deli. We are honored to be joined by legendary coach, educator, motivator, and author Bill Curry, who hails to us from College Park, Georgia, where he still maintains his residence, the same hometown as NFL quarterback Cam Newton and rappers Ludacris and 2 Chainz. Coach Curry was born on the exact same day as Judge Judy, October 21st, 1942, while also sharing a birthday with Kim Kardashian. He graduated in 1965 from the Georgia Institute of Technology, better known today, as you can see with John's background, as Georgia Tech, where he played center for legendary coach Bobby Dodd, who he himself won a national championship at Georgia Tech in 1952. In 1964, he was selected in the 20th round by Green Bay and Hall of Fame coach Vince Lombardi, their last pick of that draft, before playing 10 years in the NFL for the Packers, the Baltimore Colts, the Houston Oilers, and the Los Angeles Rams. Besides Coach Dodd and Coach Lombardi, he learned the game from Hall of Fame coaching legends like Don Shula and Chuck Knox, and as an NFL center, he snapped the ball to Bart Starr and Johnny Unitas. He was the National Football League Player Association president from 1973 to 1975, an elected position. He was a 2-time Pro Bowl center and won 4 NFL championships, including victories in Super Bowls 1 and 4. He also made it to Super Bowl III before he and the Colts unfortunately lost to Joe Namath and the Jets 16-7. He coached football for 36 years, including an SEC championship in 1989 as the head coach for the Alabama Crimson Tide, where he also was named National Coach of the Year and later was the first coach in the history at Georgia State. He worked for ESPN for 10 years as a college football analyst. He served as an athletic director for a year. He earned credits in the graduate degree program at Emory University's Candler School of Theology. He is a member of the American Football Coaches Association Ethics Committee. He's written 2 books, One More July, a football dialogue in 2008, and then 10 Men You Meet in the Huddle, praised by author Pat Conroy as the best book ever about the NFL. When he was 10 years old, he told his dad that he was going to marry his elementary school sweetheart, Carolyn Newton, and he did for over 50 years. And she herself is an accomplished author and women's advocate. He's been featured in The Undefeated and ESPN. You can find him on Twitter at Coach Bill Curry, his website, www.billcurry.net. Coach, a humongous warm welcome to the Sports Deli.
Well, it's an honor to be with you, and I'm so happy to know that I share a birthday with so many of those very famous people. I had no idea. I assure you, if we checked out who's the eldest of the group, I would I would carry the day. But that was fun to listen to.
Oh, well, you deserve nothing less, Coach. Me, and John have something in common in terms of being pioneer. You were the first coach in the history of Georgia State, and John and I played on the first team in the history at Goucher College, which I'm sure you've never heard of, in Towson, Maryland. So, how do you feel about that?
Well, you forgot that I played for the Baltimore Colts, so I know
That's
exactly
yeah.
where Goucher.
Oh,
I know
that's
where
right.
Goucher College is. Sure,
Yeah.
we were Baltimore people. We were there 6 years. It was the best. Those were the best football years of our playing career. We just had a wonderful group of people. Um, when you're a part of a team in which virtually everybody buys into the team concept, and the individuals are not the ones that seem, even though we had very famous individuals, nobody there put himself above the team. And that's why we won almost every game the whole time we were there. And then we lost that big one that's what everybody remembers. But we were privileged to be a part of a winning team, and the entire Baltimore and in fact the state of Maryland, the community just embraced us. So we have very warm recollections of our time there, and Goucher was certainly a part of it.
That's right.
what do you attribute the selflessness of your years there to, Coach?
I think that it's a couple of things. First and most importantly was the quality of the people, the quality of the men on the team. And then the second thing is that we had incredible leadership. We had some vocal leaders and we had some quiet leaders. And most of the time I was there, we had a great head coach. By that, the reason I say that the way I say it is because Don Shula was our head coach when I first went there. I owe him my career. He gave me chance after chance after chance when I didn't deserve it. Gave me an opportunity to keep learning another position to try to reestablish my career, which happened. I ended up staying at offensive center, which is the only thing I really could have played. And then when he moved on, we got lucky and got Don McCafferty to be our coach. And even in that last year I was there, 1902, John Sandusky was moved up as interim coach. And even though he only got to be a interim coach for part of a year, he was another great coach. So we had great leadership in the coaching community with our teams as well. So I think all those things figured in. And then I think the Baltimore community had something to do with it because in those days, players didn't make big bucks. And the Dundalk dock workers, they would come in to John Unitas's place, and us linemen would have beers with the dock workers. And then on Sunday afternoon, you knew they were going to be there because the tickets were probably $8 a piece, and their salary was about the same as ours. And we identified we were all working men, and so it was just a kind of a sense of community that I'm not sure has existed anywhere else. It was great in Green Bay when I was there. I got lucky on that too, but it was equally great in Baltimore and in the state of Maryland.
Coach, I'm just curious, during that time was also the Baltimore Orioles were unbelievable, with the best pitching staff. I'm curious, did the Colts and the Orioles hang out?
We dressed in the same locker room.
Wow.
That didn't mean that we didn't see each other a lot, but when we did see each other, it was such a great respect thing. There was this. You're too young to remember, but Frank Robinson was known as the judge.
Right. Oh yeah.
Sammy Davis Jr. had a comedy shtick where here come the judge, here come the judge. Well, the Orioles picked up on that, and Frank Robinson settled all their team disputes, and apparently his word was into the gospel. Was the gospel when the judge spoke. But they had wonderful human beings too, and we got to know Brooks Robinson, we got to know Boog Powell, we got to know Cuellar and those pitchers, Jim Palmer, and yes, they had the most incredible pitching staff, and they were competing for the World Series title every year, and we were competing for the Super Bowl every year, and there was an enormous respect factor built into that system, just walking in and seeing those guys. And I'd always loved baseball more than football anyhow, so I was envious.
That's great. So, Coach, you said you owe it all to Don Shula, but you spent a little bit of time playing for the legendary Hall of Fame coach Vince Lombardi, and so maybe you're just being very humble, which you always been. But why do you say that? Because obviously in Green Bay you had some success first. Not only learning more about yourself, you'd never been in a huddle, with a black or a brown, African American person, but someone took a chance on you, and you didn't necessarily expect that. And what do you want to say about your experience in Green Bay prior to Baltimore?
What happened in Green Bay was the life-changing experience for my spiritual life, because while it's true I had never been in a huddle with an African American person, except for a couple of all-star games, and that was only for a brief week or so, I walk in the locker room and I quickly discovered that Vince Lombardi's greatest attribute, even as great as a football coach as he was, And as great a man as he was, and as intimidating as he was, and as deeply spiritual as I was to come to learn that he was much later, his greatest attribute was that he would not tolerate racism. He would have put your hat on in a heartbeat. Black lives mattered to Vince Lombardi. And this was 1965. We had more African American players than anybody in the league, and nobody said anything about it. But you better not say a racist word in our locker room, or you'd be gone in a heartbeat. Well, what did that do? What that did was it gave every man in the locker room the freedom to breathe easily and to know, hey, I'm respected here. Vince Lombardi didn't care what color your skin was. He cared a lot if you could play football. He cared a lot if you were a decent human being. And I wasn't quite good enough as a football player to stay on those great Packer teams. They were already being called the greatest team, not the greatest football team, but the greatest teams in the history of professional sport. We won the world title both years that I was there, but I didn't measure up. And I agree with that assessment now. At the time, I did not. I blamed him, but it was he had to make a decision about who to put on the expansion list. And the New Orleans Saints claimed me off the expansion list. And they were so excited about me that they immediately traded me to the Baltimore Colts. I got this phone call from this guy purporting to be Don Shula. And of course, I was crushed because I was leaving the Green World Champions to go to an expansion team. And I thought for a minute this might be one of my buddies messing with me because everybody knew I was all torn up about it, and all my ego got involved, and I blamed it on Coach Lombardi. It wasn't his fault; it was my fault. But at the time, that's what made sense to me. And I thought this couldn't possibly be Don Shula. And then I thought, well, maybe I better just play it straight and find out. Well, it was. And he was calling to ask me, if I trade for you, I know you've been a starter, but would you be satisfied with playing special teams? Coach Shula was the first coach that I'm aware of that really put great emphasis on special teams. Well, Bobby Dodd did the same thing. So all of us tech guys were trained in all the special teams. And plus, I was a long snapper. And Shula wanted me to come and play on kickoff coverage and kickoff return and punt return and all that. And he wanted to know if I'd be okay with that. And I'll never forget my response. I said, Coach, I would walk to Baltimore to play for you. And I'll play anything you want me to, anytime, anywhere. And so that's how that happened.
Wow, that's incredible. So let me rewind just a little bit. And so your dad worked for the Riches Incorporated, and so they were Jewish.
Correct.
And so you were Presbyterian, and you learned at an early age, just because they were Jewish, they didn't just employ your dad; they treated you and your father and the family like family. They embraced you, and so you learned at an early age about inclusion. And what a wonderful lesson that must have been. Even though your dad was a little bit matter of fact when you would ask questions about the segregation with the drinking fountains and the bathrooms and things like that. How did you come to deep, passionate, forward-thinking understanding of and it carried over into every facet of your career and something you felt in your bones your whole life?
Well, it definitely started with Riches Incorporated, which was the huge, dominant retail force in Atlanta, Georgia. It was the Saks Fifth Avenue. It was the Macy's of Atlanta, Georgia. In fact, it was absorbed by Macy's years later. My father was the sporting goods buyer. And to go to downtown Atlanta, to me, I was a baseball freak. So to go down there and see all the gloves and the baseball bats and the stuff that my dad had, and he could get anybody he wanted to come. Ted Williams might be there one week.
Wow.
Gary Player and Jack Nicklaus the next week, because my dad sold so many of the name brand items that he could get the big names to come and be at his department. It was like going to Disney World. to go to
Wow.
downtown Atlanta and go to my father's department store. Well, the boss of Rich's was Mr. Rich. And you
Wow.
sort of expect the boss to act like a boss. Well, Mr. Rich didn't act like a boss. He treated us like his own. And at Christmas time, he had parties at his house and gave gifts to the kids, of which I was one. And it didn't matter if you were Jewish or Christian to him. So that's where a little bit of an awareness began. But I've still lived in a society that said you don't go to school with African American children, you don't play games with African American children. And I meant literally when I got out of college that I had never been in a huddle with an African American person until I got to the Senior Bowl and Bob Hayes was there and he was the Olympic champion. We quickly became friends and I started wondering all this stuff I've been hearing about how different we are. I don't think so. I think we're very much the same. And then I get to Green Bay and I had this impending sense of doom because here are now all pros: Willie Davis, Herb Adderley, Dave Robinson. All those guys, all these guys, by the way, are in the Hall of Fame now. Willie Wood. And I just figured they're going to hear my Southern accent, injure me, and send me home. And I didn't blame them. We were right in the middle of the civil rights movement, and people were marching, cities were burning, not unlike what we're going through now. It was a nightmare, like the nightmare we're living right this minute, where people's lives obviously don't matter to some of our leaders. That's hard to understand. It's hard to get your arms around, but it was happening. And I thought I would be one of the casualties. Instead of rejecting me, those guys, led by Willie Davis, embraced me, took time with me, taught me how to act, taught me what to say, what not to say.
Why do you think they did?
Literally changed my life.
Yeah, why do you think they did that, Coach? Because there's a lot of other white guys on the team. Was it just simply your work ethic? And tell us the story about when you used the word that maybe would have shocked a lot of people, but you were just sort of ignorant at the time, and it was
You mean with Marv Fleming?
right.
Oh, yeah. Marv went on to earn 5 Super Bowl rings because he moved from the Packers to the Dolphins. He went from Lombardi to Shula, who had the same idea about racism that Lombardi did. And John Mackey took me in when I got to the Baltimore Colts. But that's another story. My rookie year, Marv we were sitting at lunch, and gosh, I wanted to impress him desperately. So I was telling him that I had worked in a construction crew, and I had a great guy that was my boss who was an African American, but I didn't know the term African American. Nobody used that term. It didn't exist at the time, at least not in our parlance. And I wanted to impress Marvin, so I said my boss was a colored guy, and I saw his face change, and I thought, uh-oh, well, what have I done here? He said, your boss was a colored guy? I said, yeah. He said, Bill, what color was he? And I said, okay, Marv, what am I supposed to say? I don't know what to say. Is that wrong? He said, don't say that. Say black guy. Say black man, black guy. This was 1965, and that was preferred at the time. So instead of slapping me in the mouth or getting up and walking away, he took time with me and then resumed the conversation as if nothing had happened and we were friends again. That was powerful stuff. A sophisticated guy from Los Angeles. I mean, really sophisticated. That meant a lot. And although Willie Davis was the one who meant the most, and why did these guys do this? I think number one, if somebody was probably going to be on the team, if it looked like somebody had a chance to make the team, they wanted each person to understand that on this team, we're going to be together. We may knock the stuffings out of each other every day at practice. We may dog cuss each other, like men do. We may get in fist fights, which we did. But when we walk in the locker room, we're going to be brothers again. And it was mind-boggling. It was literally life-changing. And I tracked Willie Davis down for years, begging him to tell me why he had done it, and he wouldn't tell me. I flew to L.A. one time, which is where he had settled, and I took him to lunch, and I said, Willie, all those years ago, it was this last round draft choice, snot-nosed white kid from College Park, Georgia, and you take me aside and spend all that time with me. Why did you do that? You know what he said? He said, I don't know. That hurt my feelings. I was expecting him to brag on young Bill Curry, how I had such great potential or something. And then about 20 years after that, we kept being thrown together at leadership institutes. We were somewhere in Aspen, Colorado, or somewhere at a leadership institute late at night. And I said, come on, Willie, you have never told me why you were so kind to me all those many years ago, and why you took the time to change my life. And I think you knew what you were doing. He said, okay, I thought, I've never wanted to talk about it because I thought it would sound like bragging, but it was because of my personal faith. And that's all I'm going to say about it. We're not going to talk about it anymore. We're friends. It's enough, period.
Wow.
End of conversation.
Coach, tied into this, into the coaching world, Anthony Lynn got fired yesterday. So we now have 2 African-American coaches out of 30 NFL teams. And at the Division I level for football, I think there's 12 African-American coaches. Why do you think there's been so little progress in this area when you compare it to other sports that have seemed to do a little bit better?
I don't know why it is more pronounced in our sport, but I do know what America is. America is racist. That's the problem. And I'm not accusing any league of being racist. I don't know if we are or if we are not. I know the NFL is trying. I know colleges are trying, but if you sit down and look at the boards of directors of our companies and the companies and the boards that run our universities and run our professional teams, you see very few people of color. And I really thought men like Willie Davis, who did serve on boards, throughout his business career, which was just as impressive as his athletic career. I thought that would be the beginning of a sea change. I mean, there would be a movement that would be obvious and clearly a move toward equality. But it's still a struggle. And I think there's what we're dealing with the last few years is, I think, a reaction to having elected Obama. People didn't like that, so they're going to make you pay. That's a vast oversimplification, and I know that, but I think to try to ignore it is dishonest.
Yeah. Well, we've been on record on this podcast as saying that we believe this is a big white issue. It's probably the most we've ever heard white people be as vocal collectively as any of the movements with Muhammad Ali or Arthur Ashe or Khan. Nobody really stood up at the time when Collins took a knee the way that we should have. And, as a result, he's been banned from the league. And people will claim it's because of his ability. That's not really the reason, in our opinion. So we agree with you that there's a lot of racism, and but I am hopeful. I know John is as well. I don't know if you are, but because of the amount of white voices that have stood up, but at the same time, I've also been very vocal about the Tom Brady's not being as vocal as they should have when he's still one of the faces of the league, the owner of the Cowboys, Jerry Jones, Brett Favre's comments, Jay Cutler's comments. And if you've ever been in a locker room, one of the things Doug Williams said when he was on our podcast is that if a white person ever stands up for a cause like this, that something that an African American will never forget everything else. And so I don't know if you want to speak on that, but I think people like us talking about this and be a voice when African Americans have been screaming on, some mountains for years is imperative when our country's run by rich white men.
It's so obvious, and it's so, and the dishonesty is so obvious. When we say things like Kaepernick can't play, oh, come on. I was the broadcaster when Kaepernick started his first game, and they went up to Boise, and it was like watching a genius. I mean, it was, I've never seen a young quarterback play like that. And he got better and better and better and better. And he was going to be one of the great ones. That's my opinion. And so for him to not have a job is a blatant statement. It screams to the world, hey, you cross us and the president calls you an SOB, you're finished, period. Bingo. Well, the same thing happened to the presidents of the Players Association when we had strikes. I was one of them. All right. So but because Carol Rosenblum had been my owner and had gone to the LA Rams, I got to work for one more year. But John Mackey did not. Now, how do you cut the greatest tight end of all time? Because he's president of the union. How do you do that? Well, you just do it because you're in charge. And we can yell and scream all we want to, but until there is a movement of white people making rules for white people and then following the rules, nothing good's going to happen.
Go ahead, John.
I was going to say, Coach, do you think there needs to be, what's your take on the Rooney Rule? And do you think some of that needs to be implemented at the Division I, at least at Division I college football level?
I think that's a great idea. And I was very impressed with Mr. Rooney. He was on the owners committee when we were seeking to negotiate a collective bargaining agreement in 1974, 73 and 74. It was an awful long time ago, but I was deeply impressed with his sincere concern for the players. And we could tell, I mean, we sit there across the room, we could tell who cared about us and who didn't. And so when he proposed things, I believe that the players took it very seriously, and I believe the owners did. And I think there's been a sincere effort by some of the people involved. Obviously, it hasn't worked the way he thought it might, and I wish he were still around.
Yeah.
John, you have a follow-up?
No, what's your take? I mean, the two things that drive me nuts. I'm a huge college football fan, Coach. I'm a big, and
Bill, he's not just a huge college football fan. He's the guy that if you walk down the street, he'll notice anybody over the last 7 decades from the back of their head. So don't let him fool you about just being only a college football fan.
But I think it ties into this a little bit. Maybe you'll see it. How do we? The buyout packages that these coaches are getting, and then the search processes. I'm looking at Auburn. I mean, you pay a coach $21 million to leave, and then you go get the guy from Boise State. I mean, it's not exactly a huge pivot, if you will, in the sense of changing what you're going to do, and at the same time, not really opening up the process to get new blood in, at least on the interview side. And going back to the Rooney, one of the reasons Mike Tomlin has that job is that the Steelers brought him in, and he was not the first candidate, but he blew them away in the interview. And that's the kind of opportunities, because a lot of these associate athletic directors then go to the Nevadas of the world. And I don't think the college football world really understands the impact of at least showcasing more of these assistant coaches during the interview process. And it may not be for that job; it could be for the next job.
Well, Auburn would probably defend themselves. I don't know. I certainly don't speak for Auburn. That they would gag on that notion. But they have an African American athletic director,
right,
who made the decision, and so that might be a point that they would make, that they are sincerely seeking to literally be objective and choose the right person, the right man each time.
Right.
And here's an example. Here's faith
But
in action.
But I think what it's saying is the amount of money that's being paid to have coaches leave at a time in the middle of a pandemic that all schools are suffering. And I know it comes from different budgets. I get it. It's the fundraising side. But what's your take on all that? Is it just, have we gotten to the level of absurdity in regards to the separation of the haves and the have-nots?
Well, I feel very strongly about it. I wish I was one of them. I wish I had been paid that much to go away. I got paid to go away, but nothing like that. Now, I know you're not trying to be funny, and I should not make a joke.
That's good. It's true. That's fine.
The day, and I can't remember exactly when it was, the day that we began, I characterize myself as a college coach veteran.
Sure.
That's my background. I coached 4 years as an assistant in the NFL, thanks to Bart Starr, for whom I would have done anything, and I would to this day. God bless him. God rest his soul. If we had kept Bart around, things would have been different. He would have made a difference in the league. And if he could have won a little more and become the legend, the next legend in Green Bay, which we all wanted him to be, I think that would have made a difference. I honestly believe that would have made a difference in the league, but I'm not objective about him at all. He's like my big brother. But I think the day that we began to compete with the NFL for coaches' salaries, that was the day, the spiral. You can describe it as an upward spiral in terms of sheer escalation of the graph, or a downward spiral in terms of the moral construct of what we do as coaches with our players. And none of us is blameless. When I was overpaid, and I was in the first wave of coaches that were overpaid, we didn't turn it down, Carolyn and I. So I can't sit here and say that I'm blameless. I think we're all to blame for participating in the process. On the other hand, it is a business, and it generates billions of dollars. When you generate that kind of money and the head coach is the focal point, and you're expected to go to every cotillion club and every Yellow Jacket club. I mean, when I look at that thing behind you, I think about Yellow Jacket clubs and how many I had to go to. And I love those guys, but you're out there and there are 42 guys in Valdosta, Georgia. You got to get them rah-rah, get a standing ovation. Then you got to drive 3.5 hours back to Atlanta. Then you got to practice at 5 a.m. the next morning. Then you got to get ready, get the kids to go to class. And I mean, so you do feel like you have earned it. And just in terms of the sheer hours and the pressure that is upon you. And maybe that's rationalization, but that's the way coaches justify it in our minds.
And then, Coach, pivoting to your experience at Georgia State and that as a startup program, where do you think the future is for the Georgia States of the world over the next 5 to 10 years in college football, with where these schools' budgets are because of COVID and other things? And going forward, and are we really going to have the Big Five almost at a different conference level, as maybe having their own commissioner and then everybody else? I mean, or is it the other way? Is can we get to football being like basketball, that a Georgia State can upset an Alabama, in some version of an NCAA tournament?
I think Georgia State's going to do well in large measure because it's Georgia State. That may sound absurd, but there are 53,000 students in downtown Atlanta. There are more CEOs of Fortune 500 companies from Georgia State than there are from Georgia Tech and Georgia combined, meaning when Georgia State starts to look good, which it has already done. Georgia State's already been to Knoxville and beat Tennessee. So they have. We tried twice with Alabama and got blown out both times. The first time was our first year, so we knew we had an idea what was going to happen there. But,
Right.
But when we start to compete with those guys, then our big time donors begin to see the program differently. And this is the crass part. This is and also when we produced the graduation rates, which is what we've been doing since the very beginning, and they graduate in meaningful majors. And everybody who's been a little, even a small part of this knows that we started without a jock strap. We did not have a chin strap. We did not have a football. We didn't have an office. We didn't have a telephone. We didn't have a practice field. We had nothing. Now, a few years later, we're in minor bowl games. We got the most beautiful stadium in Atlanta, pure fortuitous, nothing but luck that the Braves moved out. And President Mark Becker worked a deal to get that stadium, and they've renovated it. And it's one of the most beautiful football stadiums I have ever seen. It seats 44,000 people, which is perfect.
Perfect.
And it is gorgeous. And it's right off the freeway coming in from the airport. And so when I went to a reunion, not this past season, but the season before, this very sort of cynical, one of the big time guys is on all the boards. He's on the fundraising board and all that. He said, when we started football at Georgia State, we had raised, and I'm not at liberty to say the exact amounts. We had raised X millions of dollars the previous year.
Right.
I just want you to know, and I want to thank you. I thought he was going to hug me, and he wasn't hugging tight. He was just this old, very wealthy, rich Southern guy. He said, this next year it's going to be 4X, meaning it has doubled, redoubled 4 times since we started the football program. So the way the school evaluates these things is, how much money is it going to bring to us? And when I looked up at Obama's second inauguration parade, marching down Pennsylvania Avenue, playing the Georgia State fight song, which did not exist prior to the football, there was our band in the president's parade.
Awesome.
Now, what does that say to America? So Georgia State's going to be fine, but I think there are a lot of the smaller schools that are going to struggle with the financial demands of keeping pace with the recruiting. And the recruiting, the thing that bothers me, there are 2 things that bother me the most about football right now. And that number 1 is recruiting, because it's insane. We've created another professional league is what we've done. You can transfer most anytime you want to, play for anybody, go play without being penalized a year. And then the second thing is the rules, and how do you call roughing the passer? You can't call roughing the passer. I mean, almost anything you do is roughing the passer. I don't want the quarterbacks to be hit either, but you got to be able to tackle them to the ground without being called for roughing. So those are the things that I know I'm rambling, but that's the stuff that I think about.
So real quick, you're not a fan of the transfer portal, Coach?
No.
I can understand.
So, Coach, before we get to a couple of final things, John and I wanted to ask you about 2 people that are having a big impact in college football: Deion Sanders and obviously Nick Saban, going for national championship number 18 next Monday. And so obviously Deion is making headlines. He's getting a lot of 3 and 4, star recruits and a 5-star recruit and transfers. And, you obviously coached at Alabama, and, the pressures of being there. And, Nick, didn't have success everywhere he went, but he's had unbelievable success there. And you could argue that you could pay him $25 million a year, and that wouldn't be enough for someone like him. But talk a little bit about Deion at a historical Black college, and Coach Saban at, a historical university with so much history, and the differences between the 2, but what are the possible similarities there?
Well, the similarities are obvious. They're great at what they do. They can get a bunch of young people to come together as one and play their guts out better than the other guy can. Do they have better players? Probably. Almost certainly at Alabama, you do. I don't know about Deion's guys, but they're probably better than a lot of the people they play, but they're not enough better that you win all the time, every single game. Uh, those coaches, I was a rookie analyst for ESPN in 1997. I'm pretty sure it was 97, might have been 98, but there was a young coach at Michigan State named Nick Saban. And I said on the air, watch this guy. They're getting ready to beat somebody that they should not beat. And the reason is because he's going up and down the sideline. And he's getting in every single player's face, and he's going to make them do something that they didn't believe they could do. And he did it, and they won. And I got goosebumps. I said at the time, this guy's going to be a great coach. You could see it then. You didn't have to be smart. I wasn't smart. Anybody that played football as long as I did, I know what a great coach looks like. And you could see it a long time ago. So he's got that. And Dion's got that. So there's some coaches that, I mean, they could go coach a girls cross country team, and they'd probably win the state championship in that too.
Right.
I'm serious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Coach. We'll leave the stage for you after we're done with our rapid fire to talk about anything that maybe you want to share with the world. We've been in 14 countries so far, and again, we were so honored that you shared some of your incredible memories and thoughts on so many important issues going on today. And we hope that today's vote turns out the way that we, all three of us, hope it will. Okay. We want to talk about your book maybe at the end, your books at the end too, if you want to, plug those possibly. Okay. So answer these questions as best you can. And, there's no right or wrong answer. All right. So if you were not a football coach and broadcaster, what would you have been? I think you already answered this a little bit, but.
A pitcher for the New York Yankees.
Right. I knew it was going to be baseball related. All right. Elvis, Dean Martin, or Frank Sinatra?
I didn't get real excited about any of those guys.
Oh, wow.
They were good. I mean, of course, they were wonderful. They were great artists, but I had the privilege of seeing Sammy Davis Jr. in person.
Wow.
And that was life-changing. He's the greatest performer that ever lived. And when you started calling those names, I said, come on, let Sammy be in there. But Sammy Davis Jr.
Good call.
No, but is it true from your recollection that when Frank Sinatra went to Vegas, he wouldn't play there if Sammy Davis Jr. wasn't allowed to perform there, and that's the reason why Sammy Davis, got his big break?
I read that and just prayed to God that it's true. I just prayed that it's true. It's one of those stories that you hope to goodness that Sinatra had that much guts, and I think he probably did.
Probably did.
I know he loved Sammy, and Sammy loved him back. All those guys, that Rat Pack group, that was quite a crew. But meetings and then plus just through circumstances, and it was just a freaky thing that I got to know Sammy personally, and he was just a beautiful human being.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, pistachios, pecans, or peanuts?
Oh, pecans. I'm from Georgia, man.
That's right.
I love all those nuts. I love all of those you mentioned, but pecans far and away the best.
I know sort of the next one then. Peaches or plums?
Peaches.
That's right.
That's easy too.
That's easy. Lawrence Welk or Hee Haw?
I would put it on snooze for both, but Junior Sample cracked me up, so I would watch Hee Haw just to wait for the next time Junior Sample would walk out there. 'Cause he blew me away.
Well, the next one definitely wasn't going to be a snooze. Okay, Honeymooners are All in the Family.
Oh my gosh, I watched them both religiously, but I got to go with Bunker. Archie was beautiful.
He was
especially
beautiful.
When I found out he wasn't really like that.
I know.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's true. Abbott and Costello, I Love Lucy, or the Three Stooges?
I Love Lucy.
Wow. Larry, Curly,
Lucy
or Moe?
Lucy and the Chocolate Factory, the greatest sequence, the greatest comedy sequence in history.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. All right, Larry, Curly, or Moe?
Oh, I guess Moe would be.
That's great. All right, The Old Professor, Casey Stengel, or Bobby Cox?
Well, Bobby Cox did so much for Atlanta, but Casey would entertain the nation for decades. How could I? that one's impossible. That's a dead heat.
That's a dead heat. Rocky Marciano, Muhammad Ali, Joe Louis, or Mike Tyson?
Ali.
Right.
Ali. Muhammad Ali.
Right.
He's another one who had a marked impact on Carolyn and me. The way he treated my wife was a beautiful thing. And if we've got 2 minutes, I got a great story about him.
Please,
Sure.
please share.
I have a friend who was an intern at the United Nations, and he hosted Ali the day he spoke to the UN. And when they came out of the UN, somebody at the school board had found out that Ali was there, and these yellow school buses started pulling up, and children started pouring out, hundreds, then thousands of New York school children to see the champ. And my friend, Rich Lapchick, who's also a hero in the civil rights movement, he said to Ali, okay, I can get you out the back. Let's go. Ali said, don't you move. He said, Rich said, I stood there with tears in my eyes and watched him touch every single child and shake their hand and sign their paper and spend time with them. That's my Ali story.
That's great.
Amazing. Dr. Lapchick was on our podcast as well. He was amazing.
He's a beautiful man.
I went to a movie a few years ago, and in DC, and went to one movie theater, and there was a long line to get in, and out walks Muhammad Ali. And this is probably in the 80s. You've never seen people who valued their spot in the line for the movie get off their spot. And he just, I mean, children, adults had to be in like a nanosecond. And to your point, incredibly nice. And his team, his entourage, this is when he was getting up there in age and his disease. His entourage had pre-autographed items, papers to hand out to everybody. And you do the research, and he actually signed them, but it took him a long time, so he couldn't sign them with everybody there. But he wanted to your point, to touch everybody there. Wow. And he went out the front. He could have gone out the back. It does that theater, but he knew what was out. I mean, but I just remember everybody's like, "That's Muhammad Ali," and everybody. I mean, you know, it was unbelievable.
There's only one of those.
Exactly.
All right, Coach, Jack Nicklaus or Tiger Woods?
Oh, wow. That's another dead heat. I mean, good gosh. I gotta say Tiger, who's just beat all the odds. And he's recently beaten the odds again in 1,000 different ways, and so public and so obviously embarrassed. And then to come back and to do what he's done is, for an athlete, what he's done is virtually impossible this time.
Yeah, incredible. Dishes or vacuuming?
Well, I'm married to a scholar, and sometimes my redneck buddies that I grew up with, they call me and say, you know what, Carolyn's getting out of line. She's all this women liberal stuff. She thinks women ought to have the vote, you know, stuff like that, Curry. You need to talk to her. So I tell them, and this is the truth, I'll sit her down and give her a real good lecture as soon as I finish these dishes. Here's what I want you to know. I do the dishes every single night at our house.
Wow.
Yeah.
You wear gloves?
Heck no.
Yeah, old school. That's what I'm talking about. Coach. Bing Crosby, Nat King Cole, Billie Holiday, or Duke Ellington?
Oh, jeez. That's terrible to make people make it. Bing Crosby.
All right. Famous phrases from the 50s that we don't really say anymore. Cruising for a bruising, or knuckle sandwich, or burn rubber?
Oh, knuckle sandwich.
Famous phrases of the 2000s. Bling or dope?
Say that again.
Famous phrases of the 2000s. Bling or dope?
Bling.
Right. Okay. That's fire or peace out?
I don't get it.
That's fire means like that's like awesome, and peace out is like see you later.
Oh, peace out. Okay. Yeah, peace out. Peace out.
Yeah, peace out. There we go. All right. French toast. Get ready, John. French toast, French toast, pancakes, or waffles?
Waffles.
Go ahead.
Coach, I think you'll appreciate this. Being in Georgia, I went to grad school at the University of South Carolina. You might not appreciate that, but I became a huge fan of Waffle House. And so anytime I travel, I intentionally will segment. I don't care how nice. I could be staying at the Ritz. I'm going to go find the Waffle House to go back. And I tell Hoot all the time. Hoot just, he's a West Coast guy, so he's got the In and Out, but he doesn't have a Waffle House. And I tell him all the time about the $8.25 All American at Waffle House. And you get your hash, your waffles, your coffee, your eggs. But then the big secret that people out there should know is if you ask the waitress, can you upgrade? It's not on the menu. You get another waffle or two for like $1 more. It's the greatest deal ever. and I've told Hoot when I break loose of this thing and COVID's done, my goal in life is to be doing the podcast from a booth in the Waffle House closest to where our guest lives.
A Georgia Tech man was the founder of Waffle House.
I didn't know. Oh my God, I didn't know that. Oh wow. Oh, that doesn't surprise me though. But that's pretty funny. That's good.
That's amazing. Okay, coach, and then we'll let you go. Brady, Bart Starr, Johnny Unitas, or Joe Montana?
Well, the first two. I didn't play with Joe. I played with the other two. And and I'm always asked to pick one of them. And here's my answer for that. If I could name one that's better than the other, I would not. And I can't. That's your answer.
There you go.
Got it.
I will tell you this, though. You or I would march into hell following either one of them with total confidence that we were going to come out fine.
Yeah. Well, it's probably the same answer for Belichick and Lombardi then, right? So I should skip that question.
Well, Bill's just a buddy. I mean, Bill's a friend, and actually he's a nice guy off the field. And Coach Lombardi, even though I did not understand him and did not like him when I played for him, he was another life changer, and I owe him enormously. And I was compelled to go to his hospital and apologize to him because I had misunderstood him, and he was very gracious. So, Coach Lombardi.
Wow. Nick Saban, Bear Bryant, Joe Paterno, or Urban Meyer?
Well, Coach Bryant, it's ironic that I had all these experiences. That I played in a game where Coach Bryant was my coach. It was called the Coaches All-America game. And our head coach, they divided up the squads, East and West, the American Football Coaches Association, and they played an all-star game in the summer. And when I played in it, we played in Buffalo. Our head coach was Eric Parsegan, and our line coach was Bear Bryant.
Wow.
And I was the starting center for Coach Bryant. We didn't have too much talent. We just had Butkus and Staubach and Ken Willard, and we were loaded.
Right.
They had Gale Sayers, and other assorted guys from the West. And it was a great experience. But Coach Bryant and I really had a great relationship. And we only had it 1 week. That's probably the reason I went to Alabama.
Coach, I got to interject. I know we don't know what it is. I've always wondered this. You were around playing at that time. How do the Bears have Dick Butkus and Gale Sayers, and they're not very good? I know they needed a quarterback, but I mean, come on.
I think that's a great question, and they had other really good players.
Yeah.
You're saying those names, but I'm thinking about Doug Atkins and Dick Evey and Ed Obradovich. They had a good front four. George Seals. I don't know if they had a corner named J.C. Caroline that was as good as anybody. I don't know why they weren't better.
If I remember correctly, weren't Butkus and Gale Sayers were in the same draft, right? Were they?
Yeah, we all played together in the.
Think about that. Think of that if you're watching the NFL draft now, and you got Dick Butkus and Gale Sayers in one draft class. That's a decades class.
Yeah, that'll never happen again, though.
I know too many teams.
Yeah,
I know.
They know too much now to let that happen.
I know. Anyways,
all right. Three more, Coach. Kirk Herbstreit, Chris Fowler, or Lee Corso?
Herbstreit. Now I love all three of them, but Kirk is unique. He's really priceless.
Did you learn anything from being at ESPN from coaches that you didn't know before you got there that you were just blown away by, or you maybe you had an impression about somebody and you learned a lot from being in the booth?
Oh gosh, yes. I mean, over and over and over. people I had the wrong idea about. I found out they were a wonderful person, or vice versa, or learn the opposite. But
Wow.
yes, I mean, because you spend a lot of time with the coaches. I sat down with a young quarterback at Michigan that was about to make his first start in college. He was a sophomore. He really didn't look very good at practice. Didn't have a strong arm. He didn't have great feet, but he had eyes. And when he looked in my eyes, I felt Unitas and Star. I swear I said that to Dave Barnett, our play-by-play guy. His name was Tom Brady.
Wow.
So, I mean, I got to meet all kind of
Wow.
fascinating. I could go on and on with those stories.
Coach, just tying into that, do you think there's some advantages? So let's say a coach either gets fired or decides to step down, and sometimes you see this, they go down to a lower division, like Willie Tackett, going from Florida State to Florida Atlantic. Would they maybe be better served taking a step back, maybe going into the booth for a year or two and getting a better feel for everything going on, seeing what goes on at different places, and maybe then getting back in?
I think they might if they liked it. A lot of the guys don't like to sit up there.
Okay.
I love the football evaluation part, but I did not like being pushed by management. The criticism I got was, we want you to be harder on the coaches. We want you to criticize the coach. I said, well, you need to get somebody else then, because I'll criticize the call. I'll criticize the play that was called. I will not start saying this guy's a bad coach, because his board, his alumni, they're listening.
Right.
And they'll fire him because some idiot sitting up in the booth said he was a bad coach, including Bill Curry. I mean, so that's a tricky tight wire that you walk.
Gotcha.
Coach, I just want to state for the record that John and Gordon, when he was with us, they didn't know about this rapid fire segment of the podcast. And you see how John's jumping in now. He's all about it. You see how he is? All right. Last couple. Is Tom Brady going to win his 7th Super Bowl first, or will Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, or Russell Wilson win their second?
Aaron Rodgers will win his second.
Wow.
Good call.
All right. Dick Vitale or Bill Walton?
Dick Vitale or who?
Bill Walton.
Dick Vitale.
All right. So this is the last question, Coach. This is the most important one of the evening. And you've been so gracious with your time. So you have a position on your coaching staff as a special assistant to the head coach. Do you hire John or me?
Yes.
God bless America. Oh boy.
I'd have to take you both.
There you go.
Well, John, I'll give you 60% of the salary. I'll just take 40 because
I just need a nice dorm room on campus and access to the dining hall, and I'm good. Unlimited access to the dining hall and a dorm room on campus, and I can survive.
Yeah, we'll let you in the dining hall, but you're not going to get access to the computers.
That's right. Well, Coach, we talked about a lot of things. We're so honored that you were with us. Is there anything else that's important to you? You know, your dad trained in hand-to-hand combat to kill Nazis. You know, you've been part of a lot of different things, civil rights, racial reckonings now. You know, you're an amazing person, an amazing husband and father. But we want to leave the stage for you to finish the show.
Well, I do not go around and thump a Bible or quote scripture, but this could be whether you're a person of faith or not. But to him whom much is given, much will be required, and that fits me. I've been given so much access to so many great human beings, and we've touched on many of them here tonight, that I have an obligation to share the best of each of them that I possibly can. As these stories are brought out by wonderful people like you guys, I get the privilege of doing something like this a couple of times a week, and I love doing it. So I would urge everybody to do that. Look at the good stuff that's happened to you in life and see if you can't find a way to share it. Next week, I'm going to be speaking to a grammar school class somewhere in Michigan over Zoom. And I'm going to get a chance to tell them how wonderful they can be if they want to. And I'm going to tell them some of the things that they could do because I've seen great human beings develop their greatness. And everybody has greatness of spirit. And so to encourage young people, or even not so young people, not to give up in the face of some of the nightmares we're dealing with right now, but just to continue and find your way to make a great contribution. And your life can mean so, so much, just like you guys are doing right now.
Thank you, Coach. That's great.
Well said, Coach. Well, we hope you stay healthy and continued success with all your endeavors that you continue to be a part of from here on out. And the utmost love and respect to you and your family. And thanks for joining us in the Sports Deli.
Well, thanks. Same to you. Right
Take
back
care,
to
Coach.
you.
All right. Take care, Coach.
Bye now.
Don't be so hard on each other.
Well, real quick, Coach, Alabama or Ohio State Monday night?
Oh my gosh. I think it depends on the health of the Ohio State quarterback. He was hurt bad.
Oh, that was brutal.
Worried. I was really worried about a kidney injury, and I still am. I'm sure their doctors will do a good job of examining him, but I think if he's full speed, we'll have one of the great championship games ever.
Okay.
So much for that number 11 ranking. All right, Coach.
Take care.
Yeah, Dabo would love to speak with you about that.
I'm sure he would. Take care of yourself,
Coach.
Okay, you too.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it so
man.
much. You hear what he said at the end? Called us men.
I know.
I don't think anyone's ever called me that.
No,
That's so perfect for him. That's like so old school.
Yeah, that was good.
He was amazing. Wow. All the story. I mean, you talk about not many people are going to be able to tell those stories for very long.
So,
Just
okay.
incredible. All right. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I'll talk to you later, man.
All right. Thanks, brother.
Yep.
All right, everybody. Much love. Thanks for joining us. And thanks for sharing space with us today. We truly hoped you enjoyed that amazing interview. Remember, everyone, Black Lives Matter. Stop the bullying. Stop the Asian hate. Contact your local and state politicians for any inequalities, for any individual or any group that's being marginalized. Also, everyone, we want to raise awareness for those individuals that are currently imprisoned for non-violent offenses, in particular those with long-term sentences that are disproportionate, in particular to those people in the Black and brown community. And I want to send a shout out to 40tons.co. 40 Tons is a socially conscious cannabis brand, and they're a social enterprise using the regulated cannabis industry to fight injustice, in particular for cannabis prisoners. So check them out again at 40, the number 4, the number 0, tons, plural, 40tons.co, because what they're doing in the cannabis space and being a socially conscious company is truly incredible, and they have my full support. And also wanted to remind all of you, if you're having a tough time, you can always call the Suicide Prevention Lifeline, and that number is 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255, and they are available 24/7, 365 days a year. You can also always check me out on Twitter, Instagram, and on TikTok at Mike Hootner. Thanks again to our amazing sponsors, Breaking Tea, Sport RX, PSK Collective, City Lokes, and Moolah Kicks, which you can see right here up on the screen. You can search them online at breakingtea.com, sportrx.com, pskcollective.com, moolahkicks.com, and citylokes.com. And if you'd like to support us at the Sports Deli, we'd love to have you either make a one-time donation or feel free to make a donation monthly, either 99 cents a month, $4.99 a month, or $9.99 a month. If you have questions about that, send me an email again to thesportsdeli@gmail.com, and I will send you the link on how you can do that. You can also find it at the bottom of every podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Link at the bottom to support the show. Please check out our website at thesportsdelypodcast.com. Make sure that we continue the conversations with regards to 3 strikes and you're out and mandatory minimums, especially people that are in jail for nonviolent offenses. So those things need to change. And remember, gents and ladies, please remember to do your monthly self-breast examinations. And remember, guys, this afflicts about 1,500 men annually, with about a third of those resulting in death. So we want to make sure that we do our monthly self-breast examinations, both men and women. And guys, remember to do your self-testicular examinations every month as well. Until next time, remember it takes a village. For Dr. J and Coach K, I'm Hootie Hoot. This has been a production of Hootie Hoot Productions. Thank you for joining us in the Sports Deli, where everyone deserves a seat at the table. Remember, it takes a village. Much love, everybody. Peace. Hey everyone, if you're still with us, we hope you enjoy these outtakes from today's podcast with Barbara Pinson Lash.
Hi,
Hey,
Coach.
Hello.
Hi,
Hey,
Coach. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Excited to have you.
Well, I'm excited to be here. I'm impressed with your background.
There we go.
We were just debating, Coach. We agreed to disagree because I told him he should start with the Georgia Institute of Technology background, and he vetoed it. So
You put Buzz up there.
There you go.
that's right.
When you're the host, you get to do whatever you want to.
That's
Exactly.
right.
I've got you may have noticed that a few minutes ago I asked you to send me one more time, email me the Zoom connection.
Yeah, you want me to do that?
Well, I can, if this connection is okay with you, I'm using my phone because with my software, there's some confusion and I couldn't pull it up. It usually looks a little better with my computer, my laptop. So just whatever if you're okay with this picture, we'll just go with what we got.
Well, I don't want you to hold it for the entire time. So if you want me to send you a link, it'll take me 2 seconds. It's up to you.
Yeah, just send the link and then let me come in on the laptop.
Sounds good.
We only have a huge election and the Heisman Trophy going on right now. Nothing big.
You're exactly right.
That's right.
Big election around here.
I know.
Right. Let me know if it came through, Coach.
Yep, got it.
Cool.
Do I need to get out of it on the telephone in order to go to it?
Probably just
Here?
because it'll be a loud squeaking noise.
Yeah, we'll probably have backup.
Background noise. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Take 2. This is like laugh all over again.
No, he's better than laugh.
That's right. He was on it. I didn't see his email. Usually I see emails at the last minute. That was my bad.
He's gonna be fine.
He looks amazing. Wow.
Yeah. I'm waiting for OJ
All right,
to
he's
show up
back.
one year.
You're sick. Don't say that to Coach.
I know.
That's never going to happen.
I know. Hey, Coach.
Okay, how's that?
Awesome.
Awesome.
Sound okay?
It does.
All
Sounds
right.
great. I love that chair, Coach.
Yeah, if it's too comfortable. I'm glad you like it. You get my age, you notice stuff like that.
Well, anything to make your life more comfortable.
But just tell me first, where are you and how long do your recordings normally last?
Well, John's in upstate New York, and then I'm in San Diego. And then we've gone anywhere from 40 to Jay Billis was very generous with his time when he went 70 minutes. So it just sort of depends. And it's all up to how much time you have. We'll tailor it towards your needs. We're honored that you're here with us, and we'll shoot a little intro in, and then we'll rock and roll. So you just sort of let us know, where you're at with time and stuff, and we'll go from there. But we like I said, we got a lot of things that we would love to ask you about, and whatever timeline is good for you, then we'll make it work.
Okay, well, 45 minutes is ideal. If we run over, that's okay. I don't
Sounds
have
good.
it's just that you begin to approach my bedtime.
Mine too, Coach.
Understood. All right, let's get rock and roll. John, you ready?
Absolutely.
Coach, you ready?
Ready?
All right.